what I found particularly fascinating about your work and the articles that you write on your Substack is the connection between the cold exposure and fertility. And the reason why this really caught my attention is because I'm particularly interested and interviewed few people talking about the population collapse that we're going into and the fact that our birth rates are falling. Now, Stephen Shaw, in his research, came up with the data that suggests that mothers are still having the same number of children as they did 50, 60 years ago, but there is the rate of women that don't become mothers has exploded in the last 50, 60 years. So that's why we are seeing the lower fertility rates, that's why most countries are below the replacement rates. And when he then started digging deeper, most women become childless, not by choice, but by circumstance. Just when they were getting their career together, for example, then they were starting to get ready to start a family, their relationship fell apart. It's circumstance that means that people don't get to become the parents even though they wanted to. So when I started looking at the cold exposure and how that potentially could help, I see that as potential avenue for people that have left it a little bit later in their life to start a family. I'm one of these people, certainly. And they still want to give it a go without necessarily going down the IVF route. So do you want to talk to me a little bit about the impact of cold exposure on female fertility? And then we will sort of jump into the male fertility as well.
This is a big problem, especially in my field in the university. So among academics and faculty, women may aspire to a faculty career. And so perhaps they enter grad school when they're 22. And it could take 6 or 7 years to get a PhD in engineering. But in the sciences, you typically also have to do a postdoc. So we're just going to say 8 years. Now they're 30 years old, and perhaps they've met a man that they're in love with. But because they want to have a faculty career, a number of their mentors will say, honey, before you have kids, you should finish your PhD. Before you have kids, you should finish tenure. The children are so demanding and they're so interrupting to your career that you should really reach that level of security that tenure provides before you go ahead and have a family, and then, have a couple of kids and it'll be great. But do the math. If they went straight into grad school, did a doctorate, did a year or two as a postdoc, started a faculty position at the age of 30, tenure can take 7 years. Now they're 36 and they're 37 before they're saying, okay, I'm ready. The man has to be patient the entire time, right? And men have more time. So, or maybe she's marrying a man who's older, and that's fine. But when she's 36 or 7, now her OBGYN is saying, well, you're going to be a geriatric pregnancy. Geriatric? What are you talking about? It's not like I'm getting an AARP card. I don't get a senior citizen discount on the bus or something. Don't tell me I'm geriatric. And then they'll roll out the statistics and they'll say, well, you have to understand, it's very rare for a 37-year-old woman to conceive, and then it's rare for her to carry the baby to term, and then the rate of adverse birth outcomes, birth defects, and things like that. So we have to monitor you very closely. They might even put her on bed rest, for the last 4 months, the last half of the pregnancy. They might tell her a lot of things that sound like they would assuage her fears, but aren't good for her at all. Just like men do not have to decline in testosterone as they get older, women who maintain a metabolic vitality, a metabolic health, do not have to decline into their late 30s in their fertility. It's just that it's normal. It is normal for women and men to accumulate the insults to their mitochondria, whether that's seed oil or poor sleep habits or poor light hygiene, that their mitochondria can't keep up. And by the time they're in their late 30s, they already have some degree of insulin resistance. They already have some degree of mitochondrial degradation. It is the metabolism that encroaches upon their fertility, not their chronological age. And so it's no surprise. There's a woman who's a medical doctor who reversed her own Hashimoto's. Her name is Courtney Hunt. She's here in Scottsdale, and she treats patients for their metabolism. And she says, I got to give you ladies a warning. I don't care if you're 39 or 42. When you start working with me, you might become pregnant. If you're not ready for that, you have to take other precautions. And her patients will sometimes say, oh no, my OBGYN says, no, I'm done. I'm going to be perimenopausal. And she's had 44-year-olds under her care become pregnant and carry a healthy baby to term, have a natural childbirth, because she's getting them metabolically ready, whether they know it or not. So that's what's going on with women. Protein, cold exposure, exercise, all of these things will help keep a woman healthy. But when I think about the different ways to damage your mitochondria, they're all incorporated in our regular industrialized lives. Seed oils is kind of the hidden mitochondrial insult. Seed oils aren't just for energy. That is, fats are incorporated into our body as materials. It is the fats that make up the membranes in the cells, and mitochondria are organelles that exist inside each cell. And the membrane of the mitochondria is made up of fats. When you give your body the wrong type of fats, you get the wrong type of membrane, and that slows down the action of insulin. That interferes with the mitochondrial function. So you've got seed oils. You've got light exposure. Melatonin is it's probably the most powerful of your body's antioxidants. It turns out that your mitochondria make their own melatonin. And they do that so that when they're really revving up, high exercise or high thermogenesis, the melatonin will donate electrons to these stray reactive oxygen species that would otherwise damage the mitochondrial DNA. The melatonin that the mitochondria produce protect the mitochondria from that damage when they're working really hard. If you don't get the right light cycle, you can damage your mitochondria. And too many carbs without a break. I mean, I'll eat a dessert. Thanksgiving comes along in the United States, and I'm going to eat the whole damn pumpkin pie. And then I'll do an ice bath. I'll clear some of that glucose out, and I'll give my mitochondria a break, whether it's intermittent fasting or one meal a day or a multi-day fast. It gives your mitochondria a chance to come back. These are the kinds of things that women can do to maintain their fertility. Once they become pregnant, get a sauna right out of your life. The heat is not associated with good birth outcomes. So stop doing the sauna, stop doing the Wim Hof hyperventilation breath work, but keep up with the cold, because maintaining insulin sensitivity is going to be important for reducing your inflammation, for maintaining a healthy metabolism, for improved mobility, especially as you go later in pregnancy and it feels more difficult to exercise. You feel like, well, I don't want to walk anymore. I'm not going to do this Stairmaster anymore. You can still keep your metabolism in tune by getting in the ice bath for a couple of minutes. So those are the ladies.